to talk about closing the listing itself. This is a sample of a loan information letter. Make this a part of the normal information, the normal service that you provide to your clients. The way I would work into this, after I've closed the presentation book, I've asked them, do you have any questions about the program that we've outlined to sell your property? If they say no, we'd like to see what kind of price you're thinking of. And I say, that's fine, we'll get into pricing in just a little bit. First, I'd like to show you the loan information letter. And what we do with this is we date it, we put your loan number on it, your name, the property address, and then I send this to the lender. And we get the information back from the lender. Here's what's in the letter. Ladies and gentlemen, the owners of the above property are considering selling their home. In order to evaluate their future acceptance of an offer, we would appreciate your sending us the following information. This is not a request for a beneficiary statement. And then the information that we're doing here is we're confirming the type of loan that it is. I know myself, I've listed houses, the guy says, I think it's a VA, or I'm not sure, it's an FHA loan, we bought it so long ago. It turns up being an FHA VA, or he may think it's an FHA vet loan where it's a straight FHA loan, or a conventional loan. And then the interest rate, not including MMI. I've had him say, I think it's a 6 3/4, but I'm not sure if it's plus a half or that's with a half. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah. Sure. So these are the things that this letter will clarify. Existing loan balance as of a certain date. The assumption fee. And Mr. Seller, here's some advantages of using this letter. Let's switch the situation for just a moment. This weekend, instead of you being a seller, let's say I'm showing property and you're the buyer. You walk into this lovely home that we're in this evening and you're interested in it and you say, Roger, I'm interested in assuming the loan on this property. How much is the loan assumption fee? And if I turn to you and say, I think it's going to be someplace between $25 and $75. See, if I don't really know, how can I serve you as a buyer or you as a seller? Now, if we have this information sent in and we get it back in a week or so, then I can turn to you and say, Bob, the loan assumption fee on this property is $35. Now, as a buyer, tell me truthfully, couldn't you make a better decision based on that information? Couldn't you? Yes. Of course you could. And he's beginning to see this too. What's the chances that you're the only one over there so far that's had one of these? Prepayment penalty if the loan is paid in full at this time. Is there a prepayment penalty? We need to find that out. Would the prepayment penalty be waived if the loan is obtained through your company? That's a new loan. We need to find that out. That would save him money, wouldn't it? Again, we're interested in netting him the most money. Again, if we have accurate information, we can help him do that, can't we? The existing trust fund balance at this certain date. Let me give you an example, Mr. Seller. Just a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago in fact, one of our agents in the office closed an escrow. We were representing the buyer. Another company, I won't mention their name, was representing the seller. The buyer had assumed the loan on that property and had also assumed the impound account. And when we went to close the escrow, the buyer found out that there was over $1,500 of the seller's money in that impound account. He had built up a large reserve, and where the normal amount may only be $200 to $500, something like that as a reserve. Now, as a buyer, if you were in his situation, you'd probably be pretty happy, wouldn't you? But if you were a seller, how do you think you would feel? Yeah. That seller felt terrible too. And you see, the difference was he was not represented by me. Having this accurate information, again, will help us to get the most money for the property. Protecting you, won't it? Won't it? The origination date of this loan. If the existing loan is assumed, will the current interest rate be changed? The term of a loan, how many years? Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Very truly yours. Name your company. You can put your company name in there. And then I hereby authorize the release of the above information. On this where it says, very truly yours, Professionals Unlimited, then don't even ask him to sign it yet. Just turn it around and you start signing it. Turn it over and write the address of the lender on there, or take a blank envelope out of your briefcase and write the name of the lender on there with a pre-stamped envelope. And then just turn this around and say, in order that we can serve you better, would you please okay this for me? Now, 95% of the time, even without discussing price or anything at all, you're going to get a signature on the loan information letter. Let's read the bottom part of it here. Let's see what he's committing himself to. He's telling the lender, I authorize the release of the above information to Professionals Unlimited. How much commitment is there on his part? He's getting a service here. And a 95% chance you will get his signature on this piece of paper. And if you get a signature on here, what else do you think he's going to do for you? This is how we start to close, with this assumptive close like this. Now we cover the comparative market analysis. Take it out of your folder, lay it out there and say, Bob, most of my work today consisted in research of data for the comparative market analysis. One of the basic factors that determine whether a property will sell is the establishment of a fair market value price. Let's review it together. Let's review it together. Let's get involved with this. I'm concerned. This is your attitude. And then you discuss the comparative market analysis. Now, if you've got on there some expired listings, mention those first, and then go into what is for sale now, and then mention what has sold, and in that order. Remember the legal manila pad that we had on the clipboard? You fold the paper over that you have a complete blank sheet of paper. Now, after you've reviewed your comparative market analysis, you say to the seller, Bob, if we were to accidentally overprice your property this evening, what effect do you think it would have on the sale? What do you think he'd say? Wouldn't sell. Maybe longer time to sell? Let me just jot this down that we can keep our thinking together. Longer to sell. Right at the top of the page, you're writing these things. How else do you think it would affect the sale? Remember now, you're the client. Fewer people to see the property. Fewer showing. What else effect would it have on the sale? Might lose money. Yeah, maybe if it was priced right to start in with, that if it was priced properly rather than way overinflated, but who's telling you this? He is. You see the difference? He's telling you now in his own words, if we overprice the property, these conditions are going to exist. Then you write down maybe 3 or 4 things. Now, your dialogue. As we discussed before, there are 4 things that make a property sell. Now watch me now as you be the seller and I'm talking to you. As we discussed before, there are 4 things that make a property sell. Location, price, terms, and condition. And as you know, there are 3 prices we need to talk about. The price you had in mind, the most probable selling price, and the marketing price. What price did you have in mind, Emily? $50,000. $50,000. Based on the comparative market analysis, what price do you think the property is most likely to sell at? $42,500. Now, based on the comparative market analysis, what price would you feel comfortable placing the property on the market at? $45,000. $45,000? What has Emily just done? Do we have a good listing? Yeah. What else has she done? She has given me permission to what? To market her property. What price would you feel comfortable placing the property on the market at? See, the danger is that you go in there and you're trying to run it down their throat that they should list it for $43,000. And I've let her list it herself at $45,000. In today's market, is this property going to sell? Sure. As you know, sir, there are 4 things that make a property sell. That's location, price, terms, and condition. And as you know, there are 3 prices we need to talk about. The price you had in mind, the most probable selling price, and the marketing price. What price did you have in mind? $50,000. $50,000. And based on the comparative market analysis, what price do you think the property is most likely to sell at? $42,500. $42,500. What price would you feel comfortable placing the property on the market at?
$50,000, and we can come down later.
Fine. $50,000. What has he just done? He has just listed his house. Thank you very much. I will list a property at any price under two conditions. Number one, that the seller's motivated. Now, he's got to be in Dallas in 60 days. He's motivated. And number two, he's been advised of what the fair market value is. Those are the two conditions. I have done my job. Who am I to tell Mr. Seller he cannot list his house for $50,000? And you know the surprising thing, the way the market's been, he's probably right. Why do you think we have 5, 6, and 7 offers coming in on one property? You go ahead and list them like this and you'll get them.
What if they are not motivated?
If they're not motivated, let's say for an example, he says, I don't care when it sells. Say, that's fine, you want to try 50,000. We mark out 77 and put in 78. Yeah, you know, why should his problem be my problem? I'm an advisor, folks. I'm a marketing specialist. I'm a marketing specialist. I am not an appraiser. There's not a person in the state of California or any state in the country that can walk in and say, this house will sell for X number of dollars, no more, no less. How am I ever going to find out what the market value of this property is? Let me just give you another illustration here. If I were to take this property that's, we're saying right now is worth $42,500, and if I listed that for, say, $43,000, like the average salesman would like to do because he doesn't have any guts, am I ever going to find out if that property is worth $44,000? Well, no. You see, what market value is could be way up in here someplace. And what we did is we might have listed it up here. Now, that doesn't mean that tomorrow we can't come back and say, Mr. Seller, I think we should look at this again. If you use this, will you get more listings? The danger is when you say to him, what price would you feel comfortable placing the property on the market at? He says $42,500. That's the market value, and he doesn't want to offend you. There are 3 prices we need to talk about. The price you had in mind, the most probable selling price, and the marketing price. Let's say, for example, the price he had in mind was $50,000. And based on the comparative market analysis, what price do you think the property is most likely to sell at? And he says $42,500. And you say, what price would you feel comfortable placing the property on the market at? A lot of times, you'll be surprised how many times this happens. If you've done a good presentation and he feels confident in you, he'll say $42,500. Now here's the danger, is that you try to list it at $42,500. And you say, all right, I'll just write her in here, $42,500. And he says, no, wait a minute. I just remembered I've got this friend in the business. Or will you cut your commission? Will you do this? See, he starts backpedaling a little bit. But here's how you throw him another curve. When he says $42,500, you say, would you be offended if we were to try, say, $44,000? No. In fact, this guy's going to get up out of the table and reach over and grab you and say, son, where have you been all my life? That's what I was hoping you'd say. We've got to do a service for the seller here. His interest is greedy. Ours is nothing more than being an advisor. Remember that your objective is to get some agreement on price and figure a seller's net sheet. Don't stall around. It seems that people right in this area, after you've done your visual aid presentation, you hesitate sometimes to start going in to close on the listing. You've got to do that or you're never going to get there. It's just like the old proverb that ask and ye shall receive. It works the opposite way. Don't ask and you don't receive. It's that simple. It's just like that guy owes you the listing. Now all you need to do is just put your hand out and take it. Once you get that rascal tucked snugly in your briefcase, you've got the change, you've got the locks on it, you've got the Doberman strapped to it. This is what I call my appraisal letter. Emily here asked me, when do I recommend that we order an appraisal on the property? And that was after we have a deposit receipt on the property or at the time we take the listing. And my comment was that I recommend it depending on the individual situation, the urgency to sell, the urgency to get the money, and the urgency to get moved. If I were going to order the appraisal at the time of the listing. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I've listed $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 homes on occasion and had people not even be able to come up with a $50 or $60 appraisal fee. They just don't have it. So what I would do, let's take and read this little letter here. The seller is saying this to you, the real estate agent. We, the undersigned sellers of the subject property, request that Professionals Unlimited order an FHA or VA appraisal. Now, you could change that too, or add it, say, a Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, or whatever conventional style appraisal, whatever you feel comfortable putting in there. Order an FHA or VA appraisal at this time at their expense. That means I'm going to pay for it. We agree to reimburse, name your company, the appraisal cost at close of escrow or when the property is taken off the market, if not sold. You've listed the property, and if you pay for the appraisal up front yourself, all you have to do to get your money back when you open the escrow is just put in an escrow instruction, and the title company reimburses you then. Now, I never lost a penny doing this, and I had great success getting the appraisal up front when I felt it was necessary. A great little listing tool also. And then if the property did not sell by the time the listing had expired, are they now obligated to you to list it again? Of course they are. And you walk out the door, now you start servicing that listing. Don't get into a situation where you're trying to bid between one agent or another. If you'll do this, you won't have to get into a bidding situation if you know what you're doing. Let me give you an example. When I opened my own company, the first listing appointment I went on, get this picture, it was on a Sunday afternoon, and Sundays I don't work. Now, my first year in the business I did. I worked every day except Christmas and Thanksgiving my first year in the business, and even those days I had offers to present on listings that I had. After I'd gotten back from church, a bird dog of mine, which lived a little boy down the street, about 12 years old, his name is Rod, one of my bird dogs, came knocking on my door. He saw me pull in the driveway, coming back from church. He says, Ron, there's some people over on Sonata, was the name of the street, and he gave me their names. I looked up in the recorder's roll because I had a copy at my house, and I looked in the recorder's roll, found exactly what house they were, went over and knocked on the door, and the guy was very nice. He just retired from the Air Force. They were getting ready to move back to Tennessee. I introduced myself, and I said, I'd like to get an appointment for a presentation with you. He says, Mr. Butcher, I really appreciate you coming by, but it's just kind of too late. He says, you see, I have 15 salespeople that we're going to interview. Now, I've already met with 5 of them, and today being Sunday, naturally we're not visiting with anybody, but tomorrow evening we start with our next one, and what we're going to do is we're going to interview with all of them, then lay out the facts, and then we're going to choose who we're going to place a property with. I said, let me just ask you a question. Is your interest netting the most money possible out of the sale of this house? He says, why, yes, it is. I said, fine. Could I visit with you tomorrow evening? Would 6 be good or 6:30 be better? He says, now, Mr. Butcher, he says, I don't think you're quite hearing me. He says, we have everybody lined out that we're going to visit with. And we went through the whole thing again. I said, and your interest is in netting the most money? He says, yes, it is. And I said, then you do need to speak with me. I said, if you don't agree with me in the first 5 minutes, just ask me to leave. At any time during my presentation, if you don't think I'm getting into an area that you'd like to talk about, just ask me to leave. No problems. I'll pack up and leave. I feel that confident that I can show you how we can net you the most money. He says, well, very good, if you're that darn persistent. He canceled his Monday night appointment for me. I went through the whole thing that I'm trying to get across. If you'll just quit fighting it, if you'll just quit fighting it and accept it, that this works. Not just for Roger Butcher, not just for a little gal in Chico that's listing over $2 million in houses, and she started about 6 months ago. It doesn't just work for a few of us. Don't fight it and just use it. People try to say, well, can I cut this part of it out? Can I cut that part of it out? Sure you can, but I don't know it's going to work. I know this works. I came over that evening, did my presentation, just complete control of the whole situation. 11:30 that night, after I had put the lockbox on the front garage door, after I had put my sign up in the front lawn, after I had all the documents signed, sealed, and delivered, here's this grown man standing in the driveway. Now, this guy just retired from the Air Force. I'm serious when I tell this. Tears were coming down his cheeks, and I mean that. Had me by the hand. Now, here's a grown man, and I was, 27 at the time. Had me by the hand. He says, Ron, I just can't tell you how much my family and I appreciate you coming by. I'm kind of a sensitive old boy. I darn near broke down and cried. But this is the kind of things that you will experience, I guarantee you, if you'll learn this dialogue, if you'll learn these procedures, and do them without fighting it. If you've got the attitude you're going to fight it, you're not going to learn it. I can guarantee it. But if you'll spend the time learning it, I can also guarantee you that when you go out there and use it, you will kill your competition. And you'll kill people with kindness. Now, the danger is that you get too good with this. I've been out knocking on doors and people say, oh, we're thinking about selling maybe the next 6, 8 months, get a mobile home, something like that. In no real hurry. Come back that night and list the house by using this stuff. This one couple, as an example, the market value was about $37,000. I wanted to list it for $38,000. I got down to the price. What price would you feel comfortable placing the property on the market at? I had such control of the situation. They said $32,000. That was an easy $5,000 under market property. And I insisted that we list it at least at $38,000, and we sold it within a week at $38,000. If you'll put that client first, you'll never have to worry about anything else that you want in your life monetarily. You know, you can go to sales training meetings and they tell you all the right things to say and all the right things to do when everything goes smooth. Now, if you're like me, I found occasionally that the seller did not know his dialogue. I'm going to show you what to do when nothing else works. And I'm the only sales trainer in the country that can do that. And I do it by explaining to you a situation that happened to me here more than a year ago. I don't know, those of you that know what a Japanese imperial koi are. Is there anybody that knows what those are? If you ever watched Hawaii Five-0 or been to Hawaii, they're these beautiful Japanese imperial koi. And I have a collection of them. That's kind of one of my hobbies, among other things. But I have an outdoor pond. It's so big we had to have a swimming pool permit to get the thing put in. I have about 125 of these. And I have one of the finest collections in Northern California. My biggest one is about like that. He weighs about 10 to 12 pounds. And I combined a business trip and a little pleasure trip into a couple weeks and went to Southern California a year and a half ago now. And while I was down there, one of the things I wanted to see on the pleasure part was to go visit a couple of these koi farms, and I took care of some business at the same time. So coming back, after I'd been down there for a while, we're in the L.A., Los Angeles terminal coming back to Sacramento. And if you've ever been there, and probably most of you have at one time, that place is enormous, enormously big air terminal. So in that, we were standing in line, already had our tickets, getting ready to board and everything, standing in line to come up to board. And I was standing up on one floor like this, and from where I could see, all the way down this way from me, there was just like a glass railing, and I could see all the way down to the next level right below me, which was no problem at all. And the floor I was on and the one down below was on, or connected with an escalator. And I kind of looked over and I saw the situation. There was just nothing there to look at. I just kind of happened to glance that way again, and something out of the corner of my eye caught my attention. And as I turned and looked, I saw this guy approaching, walking up to get on the escalator. Let me explain to you how he was dressed. He had on this red velvet with big bells. The front of it was open with lace all over it and this big gold chain. Now I know the bicentennial year, and you've probably seen stacked heels. These were stacked heels. And I know he was patriotic because they were laminated red, white, and blue. Get the picture now. Here's this guy, and you know how they hold their hand, you know. Here's this guy making it toward the escalator. He had on this hat. Well, let me explain. Maybe I can show you a little bit better. He had on this wide, big white hat with a feather out of it, just making it toward the escalator, looking good and everything. And he must have missed that top step just a little bit, because all you could see for the next few seconds was this flash of red, white, and blue as he keeps going down the escalator. Now, the strange thing is that he landed on his feet. And he said, "Out of sight." And just kept on going. Now, the point is that when things don't go good out there like you had planned, just keep on looking good. You know, I love that little story. You guys have been great today. Let me ask one question before we go. I normally give you some homework, but you guys have been so great and we've covered so much material today that... You want homework? Okay, well, we better give it then. I want you to study the dialogues specifically that I put in today. The written dialogues, I want you to study those, and I want you to practice your presentation. Do it with your mother, do it with your dad, do it with your husband, do it with your dog, whatever. But practice your presentation and work on putting it together to personalize it to you.